Okay, so let's talk about the question pattern for the midterm exam. Ours is on 10th, right? Or what date was it? Today's 5th. So you got like let me just elaborate on this thing. So we talked about the reflection models, the form reflection model, and we covered ambient, diffuse, and specular reflection calculation stuff. And we also talked about the form shading and go-out shading. So all these things combined, there can be theory questions from any of that. And that will be worth 5 marks. You have to read through your textbook. We looked at the different sections. I think it was 5.3, and the shading was somewhere else. So you have to read from there, or you'd also have to cover what we talked about in class. So all those stuff. And the math problem over here, it will be a multi-part question. It could be separate. There could be one part where I give you the description of a geometry and you have to calculate the surface normal. There will be a part like that. So as an example, let me just show you. I may give you let's say I give you the coordinates of these 4 points, the 3D coordinates for all these 4 points, and then I ask you to compute the surface normal of this face. That can be one part of the question. Another part of the question can be that I describe the surface material. So I will give you the values of rho A, rho D, and rho SP. And then I'll also give you the location of the light source. Okay. I will also tell you where the viewer is. So all these things, they're given in terms of 3D coordinates because they're in 3D world. And your task would be to, for example, find out the diffuse reflection at a given point. So maybe at this point. Okay. And we covered this, how we can calculate this thing. We went through that in details. Or I may also ask you to compute the specular component. Okay. It's just that it's more involving. So I'll decide how much time you need to spend out for this particular thing, and then based on that, I'll set up the question. But yeah, I mean, this is all going to be math-based. If you know how to do these things, shouldn't be a problem. You just plug in the values and carry out the math. But let me tell you one thing over here. The final result is not so much important. Understanding what values to put in is more important. So even if your result doesn't match, if you follow the process properly, that you did some calculations wrong, I'm not going to deduct much from there if your final answer doesn't match with mine. But if your process is right, you'd get most of the marks. Okay. But if you don't understand what values to pick in, then yeah, I'll deduct a lot. Finally, there will be one question on modeling. So I'll give you, for example, let's say some reference image. It could be a 3D image itself. And I'll ask you how you can model these things. What are the different techniques you're going to employ over here? What would be the workflow? How are you going to start? What you do next? And so on. Okay. You may mention what modifiers to use, how you can do things easier, but this is not a question about Blender shortcuts, it's more about the process. Okay, so it's going to be a narrative question. You may have to draw some diagrams to explain what you're doing. For example, in one of the semesters I gave a picture of a headset, and I asked the students to describe the process how you can model a 3D mesh for that headset. So you may have to draw the 2D diagram of the headset and say how you're going to use that as a reference image, and then go on from there. If you can use mirror modifier, that you can do only one part and then the other part will be reflected from there. Whether you're going to use box modeling technique or polygon extrusion technique, you have to mention that as well. Is this thing clear? Okay, so let me just post this to our Google Classroom. I'm being very specific about the question, so I don't think there's any need to give in choices over here. Okay, so like in my other courses, I'm allowing you to bring a one-page handwritten cheat sheet. So fill that in with whatever formula and whatever stuff you need. Just make sure that I sign that before the exam starts. If I'm going to be the invigilator in a single room, it's not going to be an issue, but if you're spread out, and if there is someone who sees you with the cheat sheet, well, he or she may not like that. So better get it signed before the exam starts. All right. Anything at all about the exam itself? Let me have a quick look at the schedule for tomorrow. decided on it yet, but some students from the other section, they were saying that it would help if we have a review class before the exam. You guys will have another class. They are not going to have, well, they can, but that's going to be on Thursday, so I'll check their schedule and your schedule. If I can find a slot where most students are free, I may announce an extra class, but that's just optional. If you can't come there, if you got problems with any of the exam-related questions. But I'll announce that. Probably that would be tomorrow. Tomorrow is my off day, but I can come for a short time just for that bit. Okay, so I'll see if that works for most of the students. If it does, then I'll announce that. Okay, so with that out of the way, let us get back to our model. I hope you guys have started your task and went into it quite a bit. If you haven't, it's going to be really difficult to finish this thing. So for this particular section, this is what we had, right? This is for section 1. And do we have anything hidden? No, not that. So one thing I'd like to mention over here, because I showed this in the other section, that how you can separate. We have covered this over here as well. But to make sure that you can see these things separated out from the other surface, what you need to do over here is to give this rim. This rim is very important. This sense of depth is very important. Right? Without that, it's hard to tell that this is actually made out of a thick material, because it just looks like paper otherwise. If you just make it out of a single plane, it looks like that. So what I suggested is that you extrude this thing, go inwards, right? See, when you're over here in the top layer, it's easy to extrude down. If you're on a layer that goes on the side, like this one, so for this edge, for example, you know that you have to go sidewise, so you extrude and go in the X direction and you go inwards like this. If you're over here though, you have to come at an angle. So this may get a little bit difficult to manage when you have a shape that keeps on moving in a curve. There is an easy way to do this thing, and since I have covered that in the other section, I wanted to do the same thing over here. So let me just delete what I have done before by extruding this part. So let me just delete these vertices. So what I'm left with is this very thin part. Oh, I do have one extra bit. Let me remove that as well. See, now this looks really very flat. Okay, there is no sense of depth anywhere. But we can easily get that if you bring in a new modifier from the modifier stack. It's up here, it's right above subdivision surface. This is called solidify. Okay, so let me just bring that in and you'd see the difference. As soon as I brought it in, you see that there is a bit of depth here. Okay, let me zoom this to show you what the controls you have on this side. Right here, this is the new modifier we added. Okay, so the options that you can see over here, that there is a thickness part. I'm not going to use all of them. I mean, only the important ones. We will go through them. Let me rotate this view a bit as well so that we can see the difference. Okay. Right now we have a very thin sort of depth over here. As you increase this thickness, Do you see the difference that it's coming up with all these things? Okay, so this is in your control that you can increase the thickness, but don't go crazy with that. I mean, it really looks odd that way. So something like, I mean, for this particular one, maybe I will stop right there. Okay, but it's up to you. I mean, depending on your car, what sort of thickness you need, you just mention that. Now, the other thing that you need to study in this point is if you look at this view, when you use Solidify, what happens is that it creates the whole thing. It creates the front faces as well as the back faces. Okay, so I have enabled the cage, and as you can see, it creates the back faces, and you have created the front faces as well. So all these geometry, they're created extra. The problem with that is, let's say, let me see if I bring the car body now, and let me zoom out for a bit. Okay, I had the car body hidden, and now I've brought that in. You see, we can see that difference again clearly. We got that back. It's just that we didn't have to extrude manually by ourselves. The problem is, if you have the car designed like this, you're not going to flip it over and look from the back to see if the faces are there. We have created all these extra faces, but we're not going to use them. That's what I'm saying. They will always be hidden. Or let me just say almost always, because you're not going to open the door. And if you're opening the door, yes, definitely you're going to need the geometry there. So the point is, we are creating faces that we don't really need. And in order to fix this problem, like if I don't want the back faces, but I just want to have the hint of the depth only, then what I do is I click on the only rim option. And what that does, you can see right away that those faces, they're gone. Okay, there is a bit of distortion over here, which I definitely don't like. Let me take out the car body and see. Oh yeah, there was no distortion. It's just that we had the car body and some of the faces were intersecting another. So that's why we had a problem. But we are going to apply the same technique on the car body itself, so it shouldn't be an issue. Now, once you have this in, we can control these two things. But what happens, let me zoom out now because you won't be able to see it otherwise. If you look at this thing, the depth that we just created, it's more roundish sort of thing. It doesn't have the crisp edge that we had before. So if you're happy with the rim that we created, the next step, what I usually do is I apply that. I don't apply the other ones, but this is a fake thing that I just created. I consider this just a helper, so if we just apply this right away, it would stick right there, and you can go into edit mode, and then we can go and add a subdivision surface to bring the crisp edge again. Oh, right. Well, I didn't use any shortcut, but let me repeat this anyway. What we had is we had a Solidify modifier, right? And I increased the thickness over there like to 0.07, but you can use whatever you need. And I applied I checked on only rim. And after that, what I did is I applied this whole thing. The reason for applying is that I'm not going to use this anymore. And also, I need to make sure that this is crisp. This is a sharp edge, not a roundish sort of thing. So you can do it in many different ways, but this is easy. You just apply this, and you can go into edit mode and then add new loop cuts and bring them up closer so that we have that sharpness again. Okay, and we should also put one over here to hold the shape. And this thing should go all around for the entire surface. Now the other thing that you can do to increase the sharpness even more is, let's say I have some edges that really need to be very crisp, very sharp. So for those I have to select them, and I selected that through the edge loop. Okay. Well, actually, let me show this over here. Let's say I want to show this thing to be really very sharp. This edge has to be really very sharp because there is a turn right there, and you can see right here that there is a sharp turn. It's not a very smooth sort of thing right there. So if you wanted to enforce that, right now it looks very smooth. If you wanted to enforce that, what you can do is you can select the entire edge loop and go into Properties tab. There is an option for mean crease. What is the average crease over there? That's what it's talking about. So let me zoom up and show you where this actually is. I'm in the Properties tab, and right here you see there is a mean crease value. Okay. Do you guys see this? We have this mean crease, and if you increase that mean crease, let me carry it on, we will have that hint of sharpness. So right now this is set at 1, and this is different from before. You see that there is a sharp thing over here. Oh, sorry. So yeah, let me rotate this around, and let's see if we can see this line over here. So previously it was very smooth, but now there's a hint that there is a bit of change right here. If you want to enforce it more, what you'd do is you'd bring in a loop cut and bring this closer to that. So after that, if you look at it now, it's very clear that there is a very sharp edge right there. Is this clear? So based on the nature of your car, if you got sharp edges on the smooth surface itself, you may want to select some of these edge loops and mark them with high mean crease, and also bring the other loops closer together so that you can see this. And we have seen this in our previous class, that the closer your loops are, the sharper it gets, and if you spread them out, then it's going to get roundish. Okay? So that's what I had to cover based on whatever we had. And in the other section, I have showed them how to build a car rim. So I'm going to cover that over here. And it's also very important, I do this here now, because whatever we did in the other section, right at the end of the class, we lost power. So before I could finish recording, before I could upload everything, it was all gone. So yeah, that's for the other section. I mean, we just lost electricity at a very bad time. I'm going to redo this thing over here, and hopefully that helps you guys and maybe them as well. Even without without that one, see, if you go into your classroom, I have uploaded a link to a video, just because we lost that one, and also, more importantly, because this guy does so much better job at modeling this car rim, and I had to link that anyways. See, this steel part is the car rim, and we have a rubber-like material, that's the tire. So those two together, they build up the wheel, and you cannot really fake it. I mean, it has to look really realistic, the way this rim is built and everything. So this is part of a paid course, but this one, at least this part, is free. And this guy goes into the details, the very details, that how you can use a blueprint and then build a rim. Okay, this shiny steel part, he went into detail. Now, for most of the part, I'm going to do similar stuff, but there is a significant difference how he copies it over for the whole thing and how I show it over here. That part is different, but otherwise it's going to be pretty much the same thing, like same sort of workflow. So what he did is he duplicated and then rotated with Alt+R, but I'm going to show you how you can use another modifier for the same task. Okay, so you can watch this video tutorial at home. I can't really play it over here. It's a really nice job, so I definitely want you guys to watch this. But to start, what I'm going to do over here, I will look for some blueprints that I can use over here. And it's easier to pick a blueprint that has a lot of symmetry so that you don't have to do the whole thing by yourself. Okay. So like before we go to images.google.com to look for car blueprints, since you guys are building retro cars, you have to pick car rims that have that retro feel. You cannot bring in very futuristic stuff or modern stuff over here. That's just not going to fit. Okay, like I'm saying that you cannot bring in a, let's say, Aston Martin DB10 car rim. Let me search for that. See, this one doesn't really fit into a retro car. Okay, if you're building an Aston Martin, definitely go for this. That's a different story. Okay, so I'm searching for car rims, and you will find plenty of pictures on the internet about that. So for your ease of modeling this thing, you need to pick a car rim. You need to pick a view that's really very flat. So maybe this one. This is not going to help. Yes, this should help if you have one such image and a rotated view of that, because that gives you a depth information. If you have this image only, then it gets a little bit difficult because you don't have anything else to rely on, and you don't have the depth information, you don't know how deep things go. But these views, they in general tell you how this entire thing works, right? This is a 3D object, it's not a flat object. And you need to make a cylinder sort of shape so that you can put the rubber material around it. The tire goes around this. So whatever model you pick, you should be able to build a car rim, and it's just a matter of choice, right? So I'll just pick any random one and then go from there. Well, why not that one? But I was just saying that it works well. So yeah, for example, this one. That will serve my purpose. When you pick this model, I was saying that you need to make sure that for ease of your use, you should bring in something that's easy to model. Like that has a lot of symmetry. So what's happening? Okay. So I wanted to use this because it has a lot of symmetry, and as you can see that if you do one part right, you can actually copy that over and make the whole thing. It's just designing 1/5 of this entire thing that matters. Okay. So let me see if I can copy this properly, save image as. So this is saved as a car rim blueprint. What's the issue with this one? I don't know. Okay. And then the rest is something that you're already familiar with. I mean, it's no big deal really. I'm not going to design this over here though. I will go into a different layer and start designing. I could, if I wanted to, I could design it here, but why do that? It's just everything will distract me. If you want, you can also open up a new blend file and design it there, and you can bring in your stuff from the other blend file into this one. Okay. But let's just keep our life simple and design it right here. So first steps first, let us bring in the car rim. And I'll do it on top view, but you can pick any other view that you want. So you can do it like that, just as easily. So add image, car rim blueprint. So we got the blueprint, and perhaps I want to bring it to the front. And yeah, it should be alright. The car image that I have in the background is distracting me right now. So that's the top view. I can close the eye and that disappears. Okay. I don't know if you guys see this over here, but we do have a bit of a problem right around this corner. If you look at this green line, that's the y-axis. It's not sitting right in the middle of the design. That's not Blender's fault, it's actually the design that was made this way. So I'd like to center align this properly. And we can do that just by controlling the X and Y axis. So I went a little left, but that's also a bit too much. So this is minus 0.1. I probably want to go minus 0.05 or minus 0.51 to I think 49 or 48 even. Okay, so this will sort of do well. No, how about 4.6? I'm sorry, I'm really very picky about this, but I'm not going to waste time. If I were doing this at home, I will spend a considerable amount of time making sure that it's right in the middle, and I hope that you do that too, because it just makes the entire process much simpler. If you look at this part though, right now, it's not in the middle, right? This should be right here at the center, so we have to change the y-axis as well. Not by that much though. Okay, so I'd just say that this looks alright. Okay, it may or may not be okay, but let's just forget that. Is this clear? Okay, so right now we got a center line thing, and I hope you see this already, that we are going to cut it like we're cutting pizza, and we're going to take one slice of it. Okay, and if you got that slice, you can just rotate that around. So we'll come to the rotation point in a bit. It's not as important right now. Let us set up the entire context. So with that thing out of the way, let us just start modeling. We can go with the circle, because this looks circular. And when you pick the circle, well, that's at a different angle though, different point. I don't want it here. I want the center to be here, right at the 3D cursor. So we say Shift S, cursor to center, and that brings the 3D cursor right at the center. From time to time, if you click somewhere else, your 3D cursor will move there. And the problem with that is, now if you add anything, a cube or circle or whatever, it's just going to go there. But that's not what we want. We want it right at the center. That's why Shift S, cursor to center, and then you start working. So we are going to insert a circle, and the default setup is that the circle will have 32 vertices. Okay. See, the blueprint that we got, it has the design that can be repeated 5 times. And 32 is not divisible by 5. So the vertex number you should pick should be a multiple of 5 or whatever you have. If it's like a shade that has 6 spokes like this, then it should be a multiple of 6. Since we got 5 spokes sort of, it should be a multiple of 5. So instead of 32, either you go for 30 or you go for 40, something as such. Okay, don't go too low, don't go too high. Make sure that this is something that's reasonable. Okay, so I'll just go with 40 just because I feel like it. I mean, I can't really say why I do this. When you go into edit mode, the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to capture the entire shape. So we can go and take it up to this point. Okay. So it's just a simple 2D circle. It's not a 3D thing yet. Okay. But with that outer layer, you need to keep that in place. Now we can extrude this inwards. I'd like to get this top rim part first, and then we can do the rest. So let's just do extrude, go inwards. So scale in. E for extrude, S for scaling. And with that, we have this whole thing. Okay. Now, if I were not following any guideline at all, it would be really easy to manage. What I would do is I could take the outer rim, right? I could go extrude downwards a little bit, go extrude and scale inward a little bit, extrude and go down, extrude and scale out a bit, extrude and scale down, just to give that feel of that cylinder if I wanted to. Okay, but that's not the target. Well, it doesn't really look great, but let me show you that it's easy to do. If you select all these things, you can scale them inwards. Am I selecting the wrong things? Probably I am. Let me go back a few steps. So yeah, we got this layer, extrude, scale inwards. Okay, that looks better. So you can see that if you have the shape, you can make that cylinder. We were looking at some such images, images.google.com. If you go there and search for car rim, see, you can make a cylinder out of it like these things. But the important thing is to get the top part right, and then we can think about the rest. Is this thing clear? Okay. So let us go back. We don't need these things. We can do them later on. So delete these vertices. Delete these ones as well. I think I got some extra. Alright, so that's that. And if we go back to the top view, see, right now we can design 1/5 of it and go from there. So one thing that would help us really is if you take this inner loop and just to get the feel of it, go and extrude, go inwards, and see that this is actually closing over here. Okay? So you need to identify what part of it you want to make, just to get a feel of the entire thing. And I'll take this point over here because there are two guiding points, one over here and another one over here, that identifies that these two vertices are what you need to look for. So what I'm saying is that if we can design these this one as well. If we can design this part, then the other thing can be repeated. And let me just select this properly. So I want to design only this part, and everything else I can delete. Okay? So I can hit Ctrl I to select the inverse, and then we can delete that. I think I got some extra vertices selected, so I need to make sure that those don't get deleted in the process. So these extra vertices can go, and let us go back, select everything, go to the top view, and yeah, we're back over here. Okay. So at this point, I don't probably need this because I have these points as guidance. So we're going to use that, and we can select all these things. We can delete them as well. All right. So from here on, we have to design this part. So it has some elevation, it has some thickness, and you need to consider that. So right around over here, let me go and make the depth because I don't want to lose that information. So we're going to go down, extrude Z, go down. That's hard to control from there. So let's just change the view and say grab Z, go down like that. So from the front view, top view, it's hard to tell, but from the side view, we can tell that we have gone down. Just as with other parts, it always helps if you have multiple views. So we can have a top view right here, and we can have a side view. And also, while we're at it, let us just close this one, close eye on the side view as well. Where's the side view? Side view. So this is not going to distract us now. And if you look at this thing, this is the guidance that I wanted, that how far deep I want to go. And once you're here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to come inwards over here. So extrude, scale, and I try to go in, but now this is not the shape I get, right? Because everything tries to converge on the center of them. But there's another mode. There is something that lets you control the pivot point. You can say that we are going to converge towards the 3D cursor. Where's our 3D cursor? It's right here. We want every point to come towards it. Right now the problem is that everything is trying to come towards each other like this when you scale them. We don't want to do that. We want to use the 3D cursor as the pivot point. So as I change that to the 3D cursor, see how this works. When I scale these things, I wanted to, do I have everything selected? No, I don't. Let me just remove the doubles, okay. So I needed to select all these, and now when I go extrude and scale, the 3D cursor, where is it? Oh, it's up there. That was stupid. So cursor to center, now scale inward, see how that works. But we don't want to go that far, we want to go this far. Is this clear? See, this is also changing the height of it, but that's what we don't want, right? So undo one more time, scale, shift Z, everything will change except for the Z value, and you come inward like that, and now this is flat. SZ will scale on the Z axis, shift Z will scale on all the axes except for the Z axis. Okay. Even if you don't know the shortcut, it's not too difficult. You can do it in other ways, but it's just easier if you know them. The next thing would be to extrude and go, increase the depth, extrude and go out, shift Z again, go out like that, scale, shift Z, something like that. So with that done, you see we got the shape ready. This part, we have designed this whole thing as a holding pattern. We don't have this part yet. That's the challenge, but we at least have a shell, and on it we're going to create bridges like this. Is this part clear? Let me know if you can't follow, then I can go slow or I can repeat a step. But if you're okay, then we can go ahead and design this part. So if you look at this part over here, there is a bit of elevation. It goes up and then you design this whole thing. So we are going to use the edges that we got to design this part, and they need to be rotated, right? These things need to be rotated before you start doing this. So perhaps how many, well, we got split part, but why is it like this? I got something funky. This is not right. Right, so once we get this design, I'd like to start from here, but I would like to, do I have these edges? Yes, we do. So I'd like to take this one over here and this one as well. We need to make sure that they're rotated over here. Okay. Another thing that you notice over here is that we can apply a very nice trick. It's just the same as it is on this side, on the right side, as the left side. So initially we said that we're going to design 1/5 of the whole thing, but just by looking at this, then we can say that we can design 1/10 of it. How so? Because this part on the right side is the same as what we have on the left side. Okay? So if you notice that, then we can easily say that, well, you don't need any of these things. You can select all these vertices and let go of them. Okay? And just to make sure that we have the whole piece, let us just bring in mirror modifier and see whether it looks right. Yeah, it does. So you have this part. So with that out of the way, let us just build this part. And to start, I'd like to select all these faces because they're going to help us make the model from here on. And to do that, we are going to simply extrude, go up, and start designing from there. So extrude, go up in the Z-axis. Well, it selected all these faces. That's not what I want. I want to select this one and this one. Right here, and from there we can design the rest, I think. Yeah. Extrude, go up. But this is where it needs to be slanted a bit. So look at it from the side and rotate this. But that's going to be on 3D cursor, so we need to change the pivot point now. I don't want to use the 3D cursor. We'll go back to the median point. And also enable clipping. I don't want things to come out. And I'll give that initial bump over here. So let us look at it from the 3D view, how it looks like. And for now, let us turn off matcap because it's going to confuse us. Do you see where it's going? That we have a 3D shape coming out from there. And I'm actually going to extrude this and make it the entire shape. So we can enable smooth shading, we can bring in subdivision, subsurface, we'll do all of that, but let us do that after we have the basic shape ready. So what I'm saying is that if you bring in the faces, we can use them to extrude and make the shape. What you need to make sure that they're conforming to the lines, and that's why you'd have to select the edges over here, right? All these edges over here, you need to make sure that they're aligned over here. So you rotate them You drag them or do whatever is needed to make sure they're on the right line. Okay, now that looks better. We probably don't have the right depth information, but that's not too difficult to manage. We will look into that in a bit. But let us get the general shape ready. So basically I want to create this one. So now extrude, come in. But as you do that, see, I cannot really detach this because we have clipping enabled. If you try to scale this inwards, this part will come in, but this is going to stick. It's not going to get loose. So disable clipping, scale that, move that apart, and make sure that it is in the right place. Okay? We have a bit of curvature over here that we don't have. So if you want to enforce that, get in another loop cut and make sure that these vertices over here, we're in edge selection mode. So these vertices over here, they are moved away so that you have that sense of curvature. Okay. And it probably helps if you have another loop cut over here so that you can split it out. But I'm not going to spend time over here to explain that. I will just assume that you know how to do it. But you can see how things are separated out right now, and we can enable clipping again. So basically we're going to work with this part, these two faces, and keep on extruding this shape and follow the blueprint as much as possible. It's just difficult for me to do this in class because I don't get that much time, but I'll do what I can to give a general sense of design right here. Do you see where we are going with this? Okay. And this thing is not supposed to be flat. And I'm assuming that we have some sort of elevation over here. And even if we don't, let me just show you that let's assume that this is the case. Let's say we elevate this a bit to give it a sense of curvature right over here. We can do so. Okay. And maybe just to make sure that it follows the same sort of guideline. Yeah, we do that. So that looks kind of interesting, not so flat anymore. Okay. And if you need to enforce the thickness over here, maybe you can select all these things and then go down and give it a bit of thickness if that's needed. Okay. Or we can also pick the back faces and then extrude downwards if it really needs to be that thick. Okay, I don't really know because I can't see the depth information from there, and I think I missed two faces. So let us bring them in as well, extrude and give them a sense of depth right here. Is this clear? Okay. So if you can do this, then it's not too difficult. You can probably imagine where we go from there. That you select these two faces and things should come closer over here to join up. Extrude, but rotate them a bit, bring them down, bring them closer together, grab X, bring them closer together, and they're joined. Okay. It's not the best thing. I haven't done it in a proper way. So what we need to do over here is to make sure that the vertices, they're aligned properly, right? They're aligned properly, and we have that sense of, let me go back. I want to do that in the wireframe view. So once I have these vertices selected, I can bring them closer over here. I missed one, so yeah, that one should come over here. So follow the blueprint, all right, and make sure that all these things, well actually, they shouldn't go there. this one rather. This one rather should come over here. I think this was already in the right place. Okay. So once we have that shape, see how this is joined up? We can go from there and build up the same type of thing. Okay. So at this point, what I may do is I will start from inwards. I will bring in a circle over here, extrude that, and join things together to form the shape. So we have this part ready. See, we have this part ready, but we don't have this top part. So in order to do that, I have my 3D cursor over here. We are still in the same model, in edit mode. We can bring in another circle. But this time around, I want the circle to be fitting tightly right over here. And then I can go extrude from here. Extrude, scale up. And perhaps go to that point. You see we got some bolt holes. We definitely need to make room for those, but I'll do that later. What you should see right away, that these things, they line up pretty nice. So face over here, face over here, face over here. Probably I'm not stitching in the right places. Yeah, definitely I'm not. One, two, three, four, and stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, stitch them as well. Okay. Now that's joined together. We don't have the depth. Yes, that's a problem, but we can fix that later on. Okay. So as we have done this before, that we can select one particular vertex and extrude that, go out. Maybe that's where it needs to be. And then once we have 4 vertices like this, we can join them together. Again, I have picked the wrong vertex, so let me pick the right one and form a face. See how it's coming out? You can bring in some loop cuts. So let me bring this loop cut. What I'd like to do is I want to bring in some sort of curvature to make a dome sort of shape. So grab Z and elevate this. Bring another one and grab this, make it a bit more round. And over here maybe we'd have a sphere sort of shape. I'm not going to follow the blueprint at this point, which you should do, but I'm just giving you an idea of what can happen. So maybe extrude go down, extrude scale inward a bit, extrude go up in the z-axis, maybe at this point, extrude scale inward, go up, extrude scale inward, go up. And then finally extrude scale 0 to close this. Okay. Just to make the whole thing interesting in a particular way. Alright, so we have the base shape of this rim already. We are lacking the details, but we can fill this in. Okay. The problem that you notice right now is that if you go into edit mode, we have 2 layers here, but we don't have the same sort of depth information at this point. So, but that's not really too difficult to manage. What you can do is you can select this entire loop that we got. Extrude that down and grab the matching faces, and then there is an option that says bridge edge loops, so they will get joined together like this. Okay, not the best example, but yeah, definitely not the best example. Let me undo that. a 3D cursor, and alright, so these guys, let me remove the doubles if we got, yes we did. So these guys, they need to line up with the ones over here, and we can selectively join them together. So it's just a matter of stitching them up, and you guys are probably better at it than I am. We got to find the edges and then join them with the corresponding edge over here. So I think I have some issues with due to clipping, so I'm not going to join them right away. I'll leave that for now. We do have the depth information, so at this point this is not so much of a problem, although this is a bit of an issue right here. We do need to breach them, we need to bring them up. So we have a bit of discontinuity here, and I need to make sure that they are in place. So just give me a little bit of time. These things, they need to be in the same place, otherwise we have a gap right here. So Alt M, at center we can merge them, and maybe that should fix that. Yes, so it sort of does. Do we have any problem over here? Yeah, the problem is due to this part. So this one and this should be joined together at center, alright. And then now again, we can remove the doubles if needed. Okay, sorry about that. I just have to stitch a few things together to make sure that it looks sort of okay. If you're going to design following this edge loop, not the edge loop, the blueprint, you need to make sure that you have the bolt holes in place. But I'm not going to do that right now. It's just that I won't have time to finish this otherwise. Let's say we're happy with this, which is probably not the case, but let's just do it anyways. Before I go any further though, I need to delete all these things that I don't need over here. So that means that I need to get rid of this entire part, because we're going to use mirror. So these things need to go, all these vertices, they need to go. Oh, I should have had used wireframe to do this. And also these tiny ones that I couldn't see from there. Okay. Because if you do one part, then the other part is there. And that also means that we don't need the bottom part either. Okay, and the same thing goes for anything that's over here on this side. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to select this entire thing except for the very last one, and then delete them, delete these vertices. That actually separates out this entire part. Well, actually not yet. So I'm going to delete these vertices, and now this is separated out, so Control L to select the entire part and then get rid of that. And a stray vertex right here, that's gone. So we got our 1/10, which is mirror reflected right over here. So if you're happy with this 1/5 part, let me just go ahead and apply this. Maybe we're not happy, but we're going to do this anyways. We can apply this, so we have 1/10 of this whole thing. What should be the next step? We're going to make 5 copies of it. And to make copies, we're not going to duplicate them. At this stage, let me just hide the background images just for convenience. So what I'm going to do is I will add a array modifier because that lets us copy things over in an array-like pattern. So right now you can see that we have 2 copies of the same thing. Okay. Let me zoom up over here to show you what are the controls we got. Right here it says count, and over here you see that we got X, Y, and Z, and it says 1 right beside X. That means that it's going to be copied along the X direction. How many copies? 2 copies. Alright? Yeah, we need 5 copies, so we'll go into that direction. Today's 5th. Okay, so one thing I want you to notice is that this one says relative offset. Okay, what relative offset means is that you have one shape over here which we can't see. Let us zoom out. We got this entire shape, and this is going to be relative. The next one you're going to place is going to be exactly right after that because it's saying 1, right? So let me make like 5 copies of it. And you'd see that they're placed one after another like this, without any gap. Instead of 1, if I put in 2, that means that you put one object, leave a gap for another one, then put the other one. If you put 1.5, for example, you keep one object, then keep the gap for half an object, then put the other one. That's how I interpret this. If it's for relative offset, okay? Now, there's another option that says constant offset. Constant offset says that you can put in a specific amount of gap. So if I say 5, right over here, see, this is where 1 unit is. This is 2 units, this is 3 units. So right after 5 units, you'd have the second one starting. So something like that. Usually this is more convenient to use relative offset because the change, the dimension of the objects, they vary, so you can control them better in this way. So right now we have relative offset and things are going the X direction, and as you can probably imagine that if you change that to Y, it goes in the Y direction, and you can also go in the Z direction. However, we want none of that, right? Or just because I got a chance to show you, you can actually use multiple array modifiers. So we have 2 stacks of array modifiers. So the first one is repeating on the y-axis, and now I can say I want 10 copies of that on the x-axis. So you can bring in a grid-like pattern for no good reason, but I mean you can do that. It may come in handy if you want to build in you want to decorate a room that has a lot of chairs and you want to arrange them in a particular way. You can do that very quickly. Build in one chair, make 10 copies, one after another. Yeah, you could use that in your assignment. I mean, that would be easy, right? Okay, but we're not going to use this now. We are not even going to use relative offset because that doesn't make sense. You don't want to go on X direction. You don't want to go on Y direction. We want to do something totally different. We want to rotate them around the center point. And that's why we need something at the center point so that we can rotate around it. So we're going to bring in something called an empty, and we go for plane axis. you can see how it looks like. It's simply an axis that goes on all three major axes. The benefit of that is now, if you go into the array modifier, it has an option down here. Let me zoom up again just so you can see this. See, we have constant offset, we have relative offset, we have talked about that, but over here we got something called object offset. So this is what we are going to use. We are going to use another object to guide it through. So put a check mark over here, and from the drop down, you pick the object that we want, and let's see if I can grab this. See, we have inserted an empty, so it comes down in the list. Or you can also use a object picker to pick that. But let me just use it from here, empty. So we are going to use the empty, and let me zoom out from here because I need to show you how this works. So right now we have this whole thing set up, then we can grab this empty. See, this is the fun part. You can rotate the empty, and then that lets you control the object. Not in this fashion, obviously, because we want to rotate in which direction? No. Z. We want to rotate it around the z-axis. So R, Z, start rotating and see how things come out. It's pretty easy, right? So we are rotating at a particular angle. What would that be? When you close this, what should be the angle? The whole thing is 360 degrees. I got one part. I need to make a rotation of 72 degrees, 360 divided by 5. Okay, so it's easy. I mean, you can use your mouse to do this, but it's not going to come out right. But RZ72 makes it fit perfectly. In your case, it may not be 72. If you have one profile that needs to be repeated 6 times, so that's going to be 60 degrees. You'd say RZ60. So whatever it is, you just make sure that you follow that. And once this is done, we can go back to the model itself. And over here, there are some options. I want you to notice again that since this is going to fit properly, you have to enable merge. You also have to enable first and last. What that means is that these pieces, when they're joined one after another, they have to merge. And also when you come back all the way, the last vertices should match with the first vertices. So that's the reason for enabling both the options. So altogether, as you can see, that we still have the profile. And that's kind of neat because now you can still make some changes, right? Let's say for some weird reason I want to grab them and move them in the Z direction a bit, just to give it a hint of a bevel, a curvature over here. Okay, and that works for all these different parts. Okay. Now let us bring in some fancy stuff. We got the area modifier. We can bring in this subsurf to make things smoother. We can also go into our object mode and enable smooth shading. See, things look much better now. We do have some pinching effects, but that's because I didn't take proper care when I was extruding. I didn't move the vertices properly. I just don't have time to do that in class. So if you still need to make some changes over here to make some of these edges really very sharp, we know how to do that. Bring in the loop cuts in the right places, bring them closer probably, like so, and now it becomes sharp. So it's the same drill, same concepts that we have learned before, just apply them wherever they're needed. Okay, and once you have that, this entire thing, grab the outer edges, extrude them, make a cylinder out of it based on the ream shape. And I've talked about that right at the beginning of the class, so this is how we build the car ream. It's not the best ream in the world, it's really crappy, But again, like when you spend time at home, you can probably make a design that looks like a realistic rim. Yeah. So once we have the rim ready, we need to put tire around it, and that's something I am going to cover in our next class. So with the rim and the tire, we can have the exterior of the car because we know how to design the outer shell, the car body, we know how to design that already. The interior, again, is an application of the same concept. You just need to make the seats, you need to make the dashboard, you need to make the steering wheel. All these things, they're not too difficult. It just takes time. I mean, these things were a little bit different because I needed to show you how you can use array modifiers, how you can work on a profile. That's the reason I'm showing you this. The tire, again, I will apply some new concepts over there with Bezier circles and how you can repeat something around it to base it off a pattern. The tires, they do have a pattern. I mean, even in the tutorial that I linked to you guys. So here's this tutorial. If you look at the wheel that they built right here, I think the very first picture, it's going to be very clear when it comes around to this corner. Yeah, I'm going to pause there. See, we need to have these tread marks on tires. We cannot really have a torus and say that this is not tire. It cannot be a smooth shape over here. So all these minor details, we have to bring them in, and I'll show you how to do that in our next class. Not right now. Any question about any of these things? Can we do the rims then? All right. Okay. For those of you who came in late, I've already talked about the question pattern for the midterm exam. It's on our classroom. So you prepare for that. And please give me a reminder if I forget to upload the previous questions today. I'll upload them. That will give you some clue. Okay, then that's all I have.